1-800-722-7337. Call now.
Channel 5's Gail Nye, keeping you in touch.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We're going to begin tonight by putting a human face on the worst case of sexual harassment in the Navy's history. The worst case because it involved more than 24 women, because as many as 70 naval officers are suspected of being involved, because the most senior officers in the Navy knew that this sort of sexual abuse was a ritual at an annual Naval Aviators Convention called the Tailhook Convention. Because until one woman came forward and said enough, there was a very good chance it was going to be covered up. The bare facts are already on the record. The Tailhook Association gets its name from the hook which grabs a restraining wire when an aircraft lands on an aircraft carrier. The convention this year was held again at the Hilton Hotel in Las Vegas. It is a private organization for retired and active naval aviators, many of whom were flown to Las Vegas at a cost to the Navy of $200,000.
I love the Navy. The Navy's my life. I'm 30 years old and I have a dog, but I'm in the Navy. That's my family.
This woman, Lieutenant Paula Coughlin, had arrived at the convention in the first week of September because her boss, Rear Admiral Jack Snyder, was attending.
Probably, without a doubt, the worst thing that ever has happened to me in my life.
Senior officers have known since 1985 that the convention included the so-called gauntlet in one of the hotel's corridors, set up for the specific purpose of targeting and sexually molesting women.
I exited the elevator, and I see a group of men all talking, and I'm looking for my friend.
Lieutenant Coughlin, who is an admiral's aide, is the daughter of a Navy flyer. She says she had no reason to fear going on to the third floor. After all, she says, they were officers, and so was I.
I went down a hallway where every man in that hallway got a shot at me. They knew I was an officer. They knew I was an admiral's aide. And I think that that made the sport that much more rewarding. They chanted Admiral's aide as I was passed down this line.
You're saying they grabbed you sexually?
Absolutely. There was no other way to describe it. There were hands down my blouse. At one point, when I dropped to the floor and I was biting the man who had his hands in my blouse, people were grabbing me, trying to pull my panties off, trying to yank my skirt. When this is happening, I'm thinking, I am strong. I can do 100 push-ups without stopping, and I can't get this man off of me. And when I did break free, I went for an open door. And two men jumped in front of the door and crossed their chests defiantly and went, mm-mm. And someone grabbed me from behind, pulled me back into this hallway. And there was a man with his back leaving. And I reached out to him and I said, help me, please, just let me get in front of you. I begged him, and I said, just please, let me get in front of you. And he turned around and he grabbed me, both hands. And
on your breast?
It just, both hands, frontal grab. And I broke free from him and went into a hotel room, an open doorway.
The Navy knows of 26 women who were attacked in the gauntlet. No other women in the Navy have come forward because they are, in many cases, afraid for their careers. Lieutenant Coughlin hopes that because she has come forward, other women will be less afraid.
Sometimes you need a shot in the arm to realize what the real problem is. My message is, don't tolerate it. No woman should be ashamed to come forward and say, I've been wronged.
This long after she was attacked, Lieutenant Coughlin is still outraged because she was attacked by her peers.
I was attacked by naval officers and Marine officers that knew who I was, and it was a sport to them. It was a good time. And it's not a good time. It's against the law. It's criminal. And it's wrong. They wouldn't have done it to their sister. They wouldn't have done it to their wife. They'd be mortified if someone did it to anyone they loved. But for them, it was a sport. And I got extra treatment because I'm an admiral's aide, and they knew I was a naval officer.
A fellow naval officer.
Exactly.
The Navy investigation concludes that what happened in the corridor, if not tacitly approved, was allowed to continue by the leadership in Navy aviation. Tomorrow, what happened when Lieutenant Coughlin told her boss? And what did the Secretary of the Navy know? He was nearby when the attack occurred, and it was his personal aide who comforted Lieutenant Coughlin after she escaped the gauntlet. When we come back, some of today's other news. The Supreme Court tells the cigarette companies warning labels will not keep you from being sued. Like falling dominoes, one union walks out and most of the nation's railroad shut down. And what may be the most mangled piece of music in America, we'll hear some people who are interested in singing it in public.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by the Discover Card.
If you're using a credit card to get a cash advance, you're probably getting soaked, because ordinary cards charge you interest right from day one, which is why you should use the Discover Card. Just pay your full monthly balance and a small transaction fee, and we'll give you cash, interest-free, so you can avoid taking a bath. It pays to discover.
Your breakfast, sir. This new Kellogg's Frosted Bran is quite sensible. Crispy flakes with whole wheat and bran, lightly frosted for a taste that's delicious. I love it. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. I love it. And new Kellogg's Frosted Bran has less sugar than you'd imagine, but the taste, it's out of...
We've got to stop serving this. New Kellogg's Frosted Bran, wildly delicious, sensibly good.
At the Supreme Court today, the case of the cigarette warning labels. The court has ruled that people who believe the tobacco companies have misrepresented the dangers of smoking may sue them. The court says the companies may not hide behind those warning labels that appear in every ad and on every pack. Here's ABC's Beth Nissen.
Rose Chipolone smoked cigarettes for 40 years. After she died of lung cancer in 1984, her family sued the manufacturers of the cigarettes she smoked and won $400,000 in damages. But a U.S. appeals court overturned the decision, saying these warning labels, required by Congress since 1966, shielded the tobacco makers from liability. Today, the Supreme Court disagreed. Despite the federal warning labels, cigarette companies may be sued under state laws by those claiming personal injury as a result of cigarette smoking.
For the first time, the tobacco industry is going to have to face the bar of justice in the same way as manufacturers of every other dangerous product and perpetrators of every other dangerous fraud.
But Lawrence Tribe, who argued the case before the Supreme Court, says those who sue will have to prove deliberate fraud in tobacco companies' public statements and advertising.
They still have to persuade a jury that the industry was deceptive or hid facts that it knew and that consumers didn't.
Tobacco industry leaders say they have nothing to hide and nothing to fear from juries, even after today's ruling.
Jurors understand that people who bring these cases chose to smoke with full appreciation of the risks of their conduct.
Today's ruling will let juries decide how much tobacco companies knew about those risks and how much they should be asked to pay. Beth Nissen, ABC News, New York.
The Supreme Court has also reaffirmed today that prayer has no place in the public schools. The Supreme Court has said that a traditional part of public school graduations for generations, a clergyman delivering a religious blessing, is not acceptable. Here's ABC's Tim O'Brien.
The court was acting in the case of 14-year-old Debbie Wiseman, who is Jewish, but who objected to a local rabbi offering a benediction at her middle school graduation on the grounds it violated separation of church and state. And the Supreme Court agreed.
I thought we were going to lose. I didn't expect us to win at all. I thought we were going to lose.
Justice Anthony Kennedy for a 5-judge majority. The government involvement with religious activity is pervasive to the point of creating a state-sponsored and state-directed religious exercise in a public school.
Valerio Costa.
The court specifically repudiated arguments by the Bush administration that benediction should be allowed because students don't have to attend. The court called graduation one of life's most significant occasions that students are not likely to skip.
Our reaction to the decision was one of very pleasant but very great surprise, because this is a court we did not have very high hopes for.
4 justices dissented angrily, led by Antonin Scalia, who said the ruling harms an even more long-standing American tradition of non-sectarian prayer to God at public celebrations generally.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
It was 30 years ago tomorrow that the court banned organized prayer in the classroom. Conservative groups had hoped the increasingly conservative court might now relax that ban. It wound up extending it instead.
I think the court has completely misunderstood the Constitution and the foundation of this country. I mean, this has always been part of our tradition way back from the beginning.
Today's ruling does not affect benedictions in state legislatures or even on college campuses. The justices emphasize that the public school setting is different, involving impressionable children who rarely feel free to just walk out. Tim O'Brien, ABC News at the Supreme Court.
In presidential politics today, the undeclared candidate was working Maryland. Ross Perot was also defending himself, or on the offensive, depending on your perspective, against all those high-level Republican allies of the president who've been sniping at Perot. Here's ABC's Morton Dean.
Ross Perot, the former Navy man, came to Annapolis, home of the Naval Academy, to celebrate collecting enough signatures to place him on Maryland's November ballot. Later, at a rare formal news conference, Perot denied accusations that he conducted an investigation of George Bush's sons when Bush was vice president.
I never spent a penny. I was unsolicited. A person gave me this information. I took it straight to the vice president and walked away from it, and that is the end of the story.
Perot said he only passed on to Bush rumors about his sons being involved in improper activities. Perot released a handwritten letter dated December 24th, 1986, in which he was thanked by Bush. Bush wrote, "I was very touched by your calls about my kids. They are all straight arrows, uninvolved in intrigue, and yet the rumor mill links them. And Ross, it hurts them. You understood all this." Perot says the incident has been twisted as part of a Republican dirty tricks campaign aimed at him.
There has been a 90-day effort to redefine my personality by a group called Opposition Research and Republican Party. They're generally known as the Dirty Tricks crowd.
Perot was pressed for examples of those dirty tricks.
I love the ridiculous ones. The other day they were down looking for my mother's will, which has nothing to do with anything.
He also referred to a series of news reports that cited instances of Perot conducting investigations into business associates, competitors, and his own family. He claims the information has been fed to the media by Republicans, including the president's personal spokesman.
I love this. It's like you're here to defend anything that they do.
All this talk about dirty tricks and investigations suggests that this presidential campaign has moved into a nasty new phase. Morton Dean, ABC News, Annapolis.
We'll be back in just a moment.
What are you doing?
Pouring on A1.
Before? Don't you do that after?
Yeah, but today I'm doing it before instead of after.
It looks different doing it before. Think it'll taste different after? Because before, you did it after.
Try it. Whoa, before you eat it all.
Oh, after you.
A1, it's how steak is done.
In our universe, there is always the unknown, the unpredictable. All we can do is prepare for it.
AT&T is now installing Fast Start. It can detect a cable cut instantly, so 800 calls can get back in minutes instead of hours.
We can send flowers for any occasion, anywhere, but only if our 800 service is up and running. Our 800 service isn't just a phone line, it's a lifeline.
I miss you.
AT&T has the most reliable 800 service, period.
AT&T. Call us.
Minwax is proud to announce a new addition to the family, new polyacrylic protective finish. Unlike ordinary finishes, polyacrylic has no strong odors, and it dries to a beautiful crystal clear finish in no time at all. It even cleans up with water. New Minwax polyacrylic. After all, a new beginning deserves a beautiful new finish. New Minwax polyacrylic, a new way to keep wood beautiful.
On Capitol Hill today, there is no indication that Congress is ready to step in, at least right away, to end the railroad strike. A strike by one union, the machinists, against one railroad. CSX set off a chain reaction this morning, and within hours, all the nation's 40 freight lines had closed down. And Amtrak, many of whose passenger trains run on freight tracks, halted most of its service too. The unions call it a lockout. The Bush administration calls it a disaster that could jeopardize the national economic recovery. Here's ABC's Tom Foreman.
More than half the cars made by the big three automakers are moved by rail. Without trains, analysts say the industry could shut down in a week. It is bad news for new car dealers, just as they were counting on a good summer to help them recover from the recession.
I think anytime there's a strike, if it's in a major industry, it just flows over into every other business possible or imaginable. And we don't need negative economic news at this particular time.
Motorists may also be affected. Oil distributors say the lack of trains to haul gas into rural areas could cause shortages and push pump prices up.
Well, the strike's going to affect everything from food prices, gas prices. It's going to affect all of us.
Even the U.S. Postal Service is being affected. 83 million pieces of mail move by rail every day, much of it business mail. Postal officials expect delays.
To the individual household, to the business customer, to all customers.
Most consumers will not feel the impact of the railway shutdown for several days, but that is little consolation for some Amtrak passengers who are still trying to reach their destinations.
Third time charm.
We met the Stewarts early yesterday morning in Denver, trying to get from Missouri to Las Vegas. This morning they rolled into Salt Lake City.
Still dragging luggage and tired and worn out.
It's been a rough couple of days, believe me.
They left on a bus hoping to get to Las Vegas by nightfall, but not betting on it. Tom Foreman, ABC News, Denver.
The manufacturing side of the economy could hardly afford any new problems, but orders for durable goods went down 2.4% in May. Orders for military equipment were particularly hard hit. The Japanese automobile industry has won a major victory. Last month, the Bush administration accused Toyota and Mazda of dumping its minivans in the U.S., which means selling them for less than they cost to manufacture. The Japanese said they were not doing it. They appealed, and today the U.S. government's International Trade Commission has concluded that U.S. automakers have not been harmed, and therefore the Japanese will not be punished with higher tariffs. There's another argument about cars that's been going on for a long time. What constitutes an American or a Japanese car anyway? You can look at the make, you can check any number of parts, but it still may be nearly impossible to tell exactly where a car is made. In the Senate today, they're talking about making a law that would clear up any confusion that consumers may have. Here's ABC's Bill Greenwood.
A potential car buyer might think this Subaru was made in Japan, but it actually came from Georgia. And while Buicks are as American as apple pie, many of the parts are foreign. The Commerce Department says on average, half of the parts in all cars sold in America are made in other countries. But it's impossible for a consumer to know that.
I know where this dress was made that I'm wearing. I have a label that tells me that.
Senator Mikulski thinks cars should have the same kind of labels, showing which country provided what percentage of the parts and labor. The industry says it's not that easy.
There are thousands of parts in a car, and keeping track of the origin of these thousands of parts would be a monumental burden.
Senators were skeptical, since Detroit provides that kind of information every year to the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. Bill Greenwood, ABC News, Washington.
Across the country, people still are feeling better about their personal finances. ABC News and Money Magazine take a poll each week on how Americans feel about their own financial situation. And for the first time in a year, a majority, 52%, say their finances are in good shape. On Wall Street, no significant changes in the price of tobacco stocks after the Supreme Court's ruling today. Overall, the Dow Jones Industrials gained 5 points to close at 3290, and the trading was heavy. We'll be back in a moment.
I put off seeing my doctor because I was worried about needing surgery for my hemorrhoids. The pain, itching, and burning were awful. The doctor said my hemorrhoids weren't serious. I didn't need surgery. He told me it was time I started using Preparation H.
Preparation H cream helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues and often relieves pain, itching, and burning for hours.
What a difference Preparation H cream makes.
Doctor recommended Preparation H.
And now, try alcohol-free Preparation H cleansing tissues.
Have you ever wondered how a professional painter can always get such great results? Because no matter what the job,
He'll always start off in the exact same place. At a Sherwin-Williams store, there's only one paint that's good, and there's only one place you can get it. The pros know. Ask Sherwin-Williams.
Quote, a mid-size Dodge Dakota with a new optional 230 horsepower Magnum V8 outpowers, outhauls, and just plain outpulls even full-size 5-liter V8s from Ford and Chevy. Unquote. Dodge, the most powerful line of trucks anywhere. Get $750 cash back on Dakota during the Dodge Dare to Compare Challenge.
You make me feel so young.
Promise Extra Light Spread. Half the saturated fat and calories of margarine and a taste you'll enjoy with all your heart.
You make me feel so young.
Now Promise Extra Light in sticks. Get Heart Smart.
To survive out here, you need a rifle, a friend like Elvis here, and of course, Domino's Pizza.
It's our 99-cent carry-out special. With any regular price pizza, get a one-topping medium for 99 cents.
Nobody knows like Domino's, right, Elvis?
How you like pizza at home?
Some of the international news in Israel today. Yitzhak Rabin has begun the job of putting together a new government. It should not be too difficult after his Labour Party's solid victory in yesterday's election. Already there is talk of major changes, especially regarding Israel's approach to the occupied territories and the Palestinians who live there. Here's ABC's Dean Reynolds.
Trailer homes inched up a hillside in the occupied West Bank today, giving life to a new Jewish community on disputed land, a pointed response to the sudden change in Israeli politics.
We're trying to establish a Jewish presence in as much of the country as possible. It's going to be a little bit harder now, but we'll continue to do that.
It will be harder now because Yitzhak Rabin has promised to freeze most of the settlement construction, in keeping with his desire to seek an accord with the Palestinians as quickly as he can.
I consider to be the most important and most attainable, to create self-rule, autonomy to the Palestinians in the territories.
To do that, Rabin would allow a Palestinian general election within months of taking office, following the lines of the Camp David peace treaty, which the current Israeli government never truly supported. The Palestinians are hoping Rabin's words translate into action.
It's a new challenge, it's a new agenda, and we have to be well prepared for it.
Right-wing extremist factions, which intimidated previous governments, don't like any of this. But after yesterday's vote, they're out in the cold.
We are going to change things that they achieved through the last 10, 15 years because they were so strong and they almost blackmail any government that were in power. These things are going to change.
It is no secret that the White House is happy about Yitzhak Rabin's victory, not only because his policies are more in line with the Bush administration's, but also because he now has a popular mandate to pursue aggressively the chances for peace. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
Still overseas, you may be interested what Edward Shevardnadze has been doing lately. Today, the former Soviet foreign minister, so popular here, was watching his troops fight off an attempt to remove him from power. Shevardnadze is now the president of the former Soviet Republic of Georgia. After a 7-hour gun battle, his opponents surrendered. Another United Nations convoy filled with food and medicine has made the dangerous trip to the city of Sarajevo. At least 3 more people died there during the night as the result of Serbian shelling. In South Africa, President de Klerk says the African National Congress should come back to the negotiating table. The ANC's answer, not until the government does more to stop the violence in the black townships. We'll be back in just a moment.
Gas pressure means pain and bloating. And the way doctors see it, your best choice for relief is Mylanta Gas. It has the best medicine for gas.
Because sometimes the day ends and the pain doesn't, we've created Tylenol PM. With extra-strength Tylenol pain reliever, plus a gentle ingredient to help you sleep. Tylenol PM, so you can rest easy.
This is the time to use Ace Paint. Hey, Ace knows what it takes to make great paint, because Ace makes its own. Ace Paint, top quality in every drop, guaranteed.
Ace 7-Star, their best interior flat latex, is just $10.97 a gallon.
Another reason Ace is the place for you.
Let's make good seasons. It's so much better when you make it fresh.
I'll say.
Good seasons. You make it fresh, you make it best.
5-day week, 8-hour day, paid sick leave, higher wages, health insurance, overtime pay, pensions, safer working conditions, paid holidays, job security, paid vacations, maternity leave. The proceeding has been brought to you by the men and women of the unions of the AFL-CIO who won these benefits at the bargaining table and set the standard for all working Americans.
Tonight on Nightline with Ted Koppel, a Supreme Court ruling that may be hazardous to cigarette makers. Now smokers who get sick can sue. Tonight.
Finally from us this evening, oh say can you sing? We all know that baseball teams use all sorts of gimmicks to attract fans to the ballpark. Bat day, ball day, have your picture taken with the Players' Day. Tonight, let's hear it for the Oakland Athletics, who held auditions yesterday for those fans wishing to lift their voices in patriotic song. Here's ABC's Brian Rooney.
Take a moment, please, for our national anthem. If tradition has it that the song comes before the ball game, then someone has to sing it. The tryouts were to find people who can belt out the highs and lows of the Star-Spangled Banner. There was traditional,
Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
there was a hip version.
On the ramparts we run. We're so gallant, gallantly streaming.
And waiting on deck were the juniors. Why anyone would want to sing the national anthem in a ballpark is beyond explaining. The song is nearly impossible to sing, and the audience did not come to hear music. With the sound delay on the public address system, it's like singing in 2 different time zones. But it was a chance to get their name in lights, so they sang with style. Lisa Ellis, the winner among female soloists, had her moment in the lights last night before the Athletics met the Mariners. Now, we can play ball. Brian Rooney, ABC News, Oakland, California.
Good idea. That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a nice evening. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Wednesday.
I'm involved with the guy.
How involved? Can Charlie handle some competition? I don't believe it.
What?
Mama, come on, did you see that guy?
I think you're jealous.
Are you kidding? Of him? I'm jealous?
The court has no authority to act in matters of the heart.
Not all men are rats. And if you look a little closer to home, you might find that out. Civil Wars, Wednesday.
All right, how many this time? 8 cavities. 14 cavities? I didn't think I had that many teeth. You're gonna have to drill? My parents will be very upset.
Parents today hope their kids won't have to go through what they went through. Luckily, today's kids use the toothpaste no dentists recommend. Crest. Crest fluoride formula strengthens tooth enamel, helping to protect against cavities.
Another great checkup. Yes. Woo, woo, woo. Later, dude.
Crest, the dentist's choice, is the easy choice.
Fun.
Coming on video cassette, Sylvester Stallone.
Put a machine gun off the back of a van?
And Estelle Getty.
I wanted it to be a surprise.
It is!
In Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Coming July 16th from MCA Universal Home Video.
When you think about who you'll be driving around.